Hello, I'm Jerry Fort. Welcome to Jungle Jerry's Treehouse. Gonna start a new book. This is the Magic Treehouse number 33. We're still in a Merlin mission, and this is Carnival at Candlelight. Mary Pope Osborne. The kids are flying on a winged lion. Yeah, a lion with wings. Let's see what kind of a a mission they're gonna be in. Gonna find the beginning here in a minute. Here it is. Chapter 1, A Book of Magic. Dawn was breaking in the Frog Creek woods. Jack saw a light shining up ahead. He ran toward it. He ran so fast he couldn't hear his feet hitting the ground. He couldn't feel the frosty winter air. As Jack got closer to the light, he could see the magic treehouse at the top of the tallest oak. A girl and boy were looking out the window. The girl had dark, wavy hair and sea blue eyes. The boy had tousled red hair and a big grin on his face. As the two kids waved to him, Jack felt incredibly happy. "Jack, wake up!" He was dreaming? Jack opened his eyes. His sister, Annie, was standing beside his bed. She was wearing her winter jacket. It was barely light outside. "I just had a dream about the treehouse," she said. "Really?" Jack said sleepily. "I dreamed we were running through the woods at dawn," said Annie, "and we got to the treehouse. Teddy and Kathleen were there waiting for us." Jack sat up. "I just had the same dream," he said. "Meet you downstairs," said Annie. Annie left Jack's room. Jack jumped out of his bed, put on his glasses, and threw on his clothes. He grabbed his winter jacket and his backpack. Then he slipped quietly down the stairs and out the front door. Annie was waiting on the porch. The February air was chilly. Frost sparkled in the grass as the sun rose over the Frog Creek woods. "Ready?" asked Annie. Jack nodded and zipped his jacket. Without another word, he and Annie hurried up their street and headed into the woods. They ran through the long shadows of early morning. Between the bare winter trees. Then they stopped. The treehouse was back, just as Jack had seen it in his dream. It was high in the tallest oak tree, shining in the cold morning light. "Wow," breathed Jack. "Dreams can come true." "Yep," said Annie. "Teddy, Kathleen." No one answered. "I guess only part of this dream came true," Annie said sadly. She grabbed the rope ladder and started up. Jack followed. Annie climbed into the treehouse. "Oh, wow," she said. "What is it?" said Jack. "They're here," said Annie in a loud whisper. Jack climbed in behind her. Their friends, Teddy and Kathleen, apprentices to Morgan Le Fay, were sitting under the treehouse window. Wrapped in heavy woolen cloaks, they were both fast asleep. "Hey, sleepyheads," said Annie. "Wake up." Kathleen blinked and yawned. Teddy rubbed his eyes. When he saw Jack and Annie, he gave them a wide grin and leaped to his feet. "Hello," he said. "Hello," cried Annie. She threw her arms around Teddy. "We both dreamed you were here." "Ah, then our magic worked," said Teddy. "Kathleen suggested we send dreams to let you know we were here, and it seems our magic sent us to dreamland as well." "But now we are all awake," said Kathleen, "and I am very glad to see you." She stood up, drawing her cloak around her. Her blue eyes sparkled like seawater in the dawn light. "I'm glad to see you too," Jack said shyly. "Are you taking us on another Merlin mission?" said Annie. "Not exactly," said Teddy. "Merlin has a most important mission for you, but this time we will not be going along." "Oh no," said Annie. "What if we need your magic to help us?" Teddy and Kathleen looked at each other and smiled. Then Kathleen turned back to Jack and Annie. "Morgan thinks you may be ready to use magic on your own," she said. "Really?" said Jack. "Yes," said Teddy, "but Merlin is very cautious about sharing magic powers with mortals, even with two as worthy as you. He is also wary of magic being used outside the realm of Camelot. Nevertheless, Morgan has convinced Merlin to let you prove yourselves. You will be tested on 4 missions." "But we don't know any magic," said Jack. "Remember what I told you on our last adventure?" said Teddy. "If we all work together, anything is possible," said Annie. "But you just said you weren't coming with us." "That is true," said Kathleen, "and that is why we bring you this." She reached into a pocket of her cloak and pulled out a small handmade book. She gave the book to Annie. The cover of the book was made of rough brown paper. Written on it in neat, simple handwriting was the title, 10 Magic Rhymes for Annie and Jack from Teddy and Kathleen. "You made this for us?" said Annie. "Yes," said Kathleen. One line of each rhyme is in Teddy's language, and one is in mine, the language of the Seal People." Annie opened the book to the table of contents. She and Jack skimmed the list of rhymes, and Jack read some of the entries aloud. "Fly through the air, make metal soft, turn into ducks." "Oh, that makes you turn into ducks." "Fly through the air, make metal soft." Annie giggled. "These are so cool," she said. "Let's all turn into ducks." "Not now," said Kathleen. "You must use these rhymes very sparingly. There are only 10 rhymes in the book, and each can only be used once. They are meant to last you for 4 journeys." "4?" said Jack. "Aye," said Teddy. "Merlin has agreed that if you can use our magic wisely on 4 missions, he will teach you the secrets that will allow you to make magic on your own." "Oh boy," said Annie. Jack put the book of magic rhymes in his backpack. "So where are we going on our first mission?" he asked. "This research book from Morgan will tell you," said Teddy. He took out a book and handed it to Jack. The cover showed a bright, colorful city surrounded by water. Jack read the title aloud, "A Visit to Venice, Italy." "I've heard of Venice," said Annie. "Last year Aunt Gail and Uncle Michael went there on vacation." "Aye, 'tis a city that has long welcomed travelers," said Teddy. "But you and Jack will travel to the Venice of 260 years ago." "What will we do there?" asked Jack. "Merlin has prepared careful directions for you," said Teddy. He pulled a letter out of a pocket in his cloak and gave it to Jack. "Read this when you get to Venice." "Okay," said Jack. He put Merlin's letter and Morgan's research book into his backpack. "Wait a minute," said Annie. "If we take the treehouse to Venice, how will you guys get back to Camelot?" Teddy and Kathleen smiled and held up their hands. They each wore a ring made of pale blue glass. These magic rings belong to Morgan," said Kathleen. "They will take us home." "Remember," Teddy said to Jack and Annie, "follow Merlin's directions carefully. If you prove yourselves to be wise and brave helpers, he will call for you again soon." Kathleen nodded. "Goodbye now," she said to Jack and Annie. "Good luck." Kathleen and Teddy raised their glass rings to their lips. Together they whispered words too softly to be heard, then blew on the rings. Before Jack and Annie's eyes, the two young sorcerers began to fade into the cool morning air. In an instant, they had disappeared completely. "They're gone," breathed Jack. "I guess it's time for us to go too," said Annie. Jack took a deep breath. Then he pointed at the cover of the Venice book. "I wish we could go there," he said. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 2. Carnival. Annie laughed. Jack opened his eyes. He and Annie were wearing purple and pink outfits with huge ruffled collars. On their heads were funny hats. On their feet were red slippers with big bows. "Who are we?" Annie asked. "I don't know," said Jack. He didn't feel like a wise and brave helper in his red slippers. He felt stupid. Together, Jack and Annie looked out the treehouse window. They had landed in a small tree inside a walled garden. The sky was gray. Jack couldn't tell if it was morning or evening, but the air felt damp and heavy, as if a storm was about to break. "Oh, goodness. I guess this is Venice," he said. Let's check our book," said Annie. She opened her research book and read aloud. "Today, the city of Venice is one of the most popular tourist spots in the world. It lies in a lagoon of the Adriatic Sea. Instead of roads, Venice has waterways called canals. People glide along the canals in shallow boats called gondolas. A man called a gondolier stands in the back of the boat and uses a long oar to propel the gondola through the water." "That sounds like fun," said Jack. "Yep," said Annie. She reached the book. She closed the book. "Let's go." "Wait," said Jack. "We don't even know what our mission is yet." He took out Merlin's letter and unfolded it. He read aloud. "Dear Jack and Annie of Frog Creek, your mission will require great patience and a bit of magic. The Grand Lady of the Lagoon is in terrible danger. The only one who can help you save her from disaster is the ruler of the seas. To locate him, follow these directions. When waters rise beneath the moon, visit the Grand Lady of the Lagoon. To find out where you need to go, seek out a painter named Tipolo. Yeah. At midnight, 2 men will tell you the time. To the top of their tower, hurry and climb. The king of the jungle will carry you there, not over land, but high in the air. An angel of gold will show you the way to the sea by night and home by day." Jack pushed his glasses into place. He said. "I wonder who the Grand Lady is," said Annie. "And why do we need to save her?" I'm wondering lots of stuff," said Jack. "What about the king of the jungle? We're in a city, not a jungle. And what about that angel?" "And let's just take one thing at a time," said Annie. "What are we supposed to do first?" Jack looked back at the letter and read, "When waters rise beneath the moon, visit the Grand Lady of the Lagoon." "So let's start by finding the Grand Lady," said Annie. She headed down the treehouse ladder. Jack put Merlin's letter into his backpack, along with Morgan's research book and Teddy and Kathleen's book of magic rhymes. Then he climbed down the rope ladder and caught up with Annie. Jack and Annie walked over a pebbly path as the sky darkened. "Good," thought Jack. "It's night." He didn't want anyone to see him in his silly outfit, especially the red slippers with the bows. "That must be the way out," said Annie. She led Jack to a wooden gate in the garden wall and pushed it open. Jack and Annie stepped through the gate onto a quiet, empty walkway. Next to the walkway was a narrow lane of water. "I guess that's a canal," said Jack. "And that must be a gondola," said Annie. She pointed to a long, curved black boat round in the corner. In the last light of day, the gondola was gliding silently up the canal toward them. "Yikes," whispered Annie. There were two people in the boat, a gondolier and a passenger. Each wore a black cloak, white gloves, and a ghostly white mask. The masks had long, pointy noses shaped like bird beaks. The passenger sat in the middle of the boat, holding a lantern. The gondolier stood in the back, pushing a long oar through the water. "They look a lot weirder than us," said Annie. "No kidding," said Jack. "Hello," the passenger shouted. The person's voice was muffled behind the white mask. "Do you need help?" "Yes," Annie shouted back. "Can you take us to the Grand Lady of the Lagoon?" "Yes, of course. She is back that way," answered the masked passenger. "Come." "Great," said Annie. She grabbed Jack's hand and pulled him over to the gondola. The gondola rocked a bit as she and Jack climbed aboard and took seats between the gondolier and the passenger. The gondolier pushed the gondola away from the landing. His long oar made soft splashes in the water as the boat moved up the canal. Jack cleared his throat. Excuse me," he said. "Why are you wearing bird masks?" For Carnival, of course," said the passenger. "That is why you are wearing clown costumes, no?" "Oh, yeah, sure," said Jack. As the gondola slid through the canal, Jack snuck their research book out of his backpack. "Oh, boy, a carnival," Annie whispered to Jack. "I hope it has a roller coaster." "I don't think they had roller coasters 260 years ago," whispered Jack. Jack looked up Carnival in the index. He found the page. Then he and Annie silently read together. For many centuries, Carnival has been the most famous yearly festival of Venice. For Carnival, people disguise themselves as anything they want to be: rich, poor, male, female, young, and old. All are equal during Carnival. "Look, that's us," whispered Annie. She pointed to a picture of a colorful costume with a white ruffled collar and red slippers with bows. "Yeah, that's them. Oh, gosh, excuse me," whispered Jack. He pointed to a picture of a person dressed in a black cloak and a white mask with a bird's beak. Jack closed the book and put it away. The gondola people didn't seem so weird anymore, but he still wondered why a grand lady was in terrible danger at Carnival. As the boat glided around a bend, Jack caught his breath. He saw dozens of gondolas rocking on the choppy waters of a wide open canal. They were all decorated with ribbons and flowers. Candlelight from their lanterns danced on the dark, rippling water. "Look, that must be Carnival over there," said Annie, pointing. In the distance, thousands of candles twinkled along the shoreline. Sounds of laughter, clapping, and shouting floated over the water. "Hold on tightly," said the masked person in the front of the gondola. "The tide is high tonight." As their gondola joined the fleet of boats heading toward Carnival, the wind picked up. The waves grew taller. Jack and Annie held on to the sides of the boat. Jack heard a faint rumble of faraway thunder. He saw a zigzag flash of lightning in the distant sky. "Is a storm coming?" he wondered nervously. "Is the storm part of the disaster that's going to happen to the Grand Lady of the Lagoon?" "That is going to be fun, isn't it?" said Annie cheerfully. "Sure," said Jack. He tried to shake off his worries as the wind and tide helped push the gondola toward the twinkling candles of Carnival. All right. We're just getting started, but I got to stop there. we got part one out of the way. So I'm going to write on this paper, part 2 is next. Let's see, the chapter 3 is where we're going to go back to. The Grand Lady of the Lagoon. That's what it's called. Put this there. Okay. Sounding pretty interesting, isn't it? Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.